Hi, humans. Welcome to LX2 Codependency Coaching Podcast. I am recording in Merida, Mexico. I have been here for the last 2.5 weeks, and so many things have happened. And so I just wanted to come on and share with you guys a little bit of what's been going on. And I had a podcast topic in mind, and then all hell broke loose, just lots of different things happening, not in a negative way, just it was a lot, so I didn't have an opportunity to record until now. So, yeah, I was thinking about this idea of forged steel, right? And it was interesting because I was thinking specifically about like iron works and metal and steel, in that it is a composite of a couple different things: iron and charcoal, and there's this stuff called coke, which is kind of a rock or a metal mineral. Anyway, just the different processes of applying these things and integrating them together, and then they get, you know, um, smelted, right? Heated to a certain temperature, they all kind of melt together. It's a whole thing, but the reason I was thinking about it was I was thinking about relationships, and I was thinking about how lots of relationships, both familial, romantic, even friendships, go through different test periods, different things of challenge or difficulty, and those are the elements, right, added to a relationship. You go through the fires of challenge together, and then specific to weaponry, as I was thinking about it, so in order to like make wrought iron or different uh, weapons of war, just weapons in general, like steel based or iron based weapons, you have to smash them out, right? So you put them in the heat, put them on the anvil, and smack some sense into them, and then put them back. And it's a whole process, right? And it had me thinking about relationships. Now, obviously, I am not someone who makes anything in that way. I have a lot of respect for people who have mechanical or engineering minds and can, or even just like creative people who could make stuff. My brain doesn't work that way. It works this way. And so when I use metaphors or analogies in counseling or therapy, part of it is how I think about different things in the world, right? And so I was thinking about relationships and how they go through so many different tests where they're like pounded out and put in the fire and done all the things, right? Go through the fires of tests or tribulations or difficulty. And I think about how some people, especially when they are very committed to working on building skills and tools in a relationship, will come out of it on the other side. Yeah, it's definitely going to be difficult and challenging, but it's not going to take them down. And as I think about all the other things that we've talked about in terms of resiliency and behavior patterns and all of the things, unintentional consequences, I think about how relationships can be forged into something stronger going through really hard and difficult things. And as it's interesting, because I was doing a little bit of research, which I rarely do before I come on and talk about things. I usually just talk from my own knowledge base. But I had taken I've taken 2 human development classes, one for my degree in psychology and then one for my degree in counseling. And as I looked at, I think that like the 5 predictors of divorce or whatever, because they used to be in the human development class, they've completely changed, which I love. I think it's awesome. But they used to talk about how like death of any kind, finances, moving house, having a baby can be really challenging on relationships. And those are some of the tests that we go through. Because when you choose a partner and, hopefully have a lot of seasons with them, you go through several different things. And it's funny because when I looked at it now, it was like communication, hardship, emotional intelligence, which I love. Again, interesting to think about how it's changed from these 5 or 7 things could be hard in a relationship to like really nitty gritty skills and tools. And anyway, so thinking about that, thinking about how humans get together, and I talk about it often, we come from two different backgrounds, and we like the vibes. We're all about it. Like, you're cool, I'm cool. We believe in the same things. We like similar, entertainment things, whatever. We have similar kinds of humor, whatever it is that brings people together. And then we, date for a little bit, or, even in friendship, like, we hang out, we spend more time together. The more time we spend together, the more curious I get, the more I want to spend time with you, the more I want to learn about things. There's a level of commitment to and consistency in relationship. And then hard things will happen. Something challenging will happen. Financial hardship, death of a close loved one. We may need something significant, and to see how other people show up in those relationships. So those are the tests that I'm talking about that really kind of reinforce a relationship or reinforce a connection when you recognize that with reliability, the other person that we are investing time and energy and effort into shows up, and then we can see if we can get through it together, right? It's interesting when we have children, they don't really get to choose. They are just along for the ride, and that ride can be really terrifying sometimes. And so they're looking to us to build resilience. They're looking to us to see how we handle those things. And not that we have to, stiff upper lip it or, shut it down, not let kids see our emotions, but to build safety and security, we need to be able to show up and say, yeah, this is really hard, and we're going to get through it together, right? Thinking about, I speak about my relationship with my daughter often. She and I have been through some things together. And one of the ways, and we talk about it often, is that, we can rely on one another with consistency. It does take some effort. It does take some communication in terms of expectations. Has it always been easy? Absolutely not. And we have built this resilience in our bond and relationship. And so really thinking about, that idea of steel or metal or iron or whatever is like, once it goes through those, those heating elements of being able to like bring it down to its liquid form, you add things to it to make it stronger. And then you shape it into whatever it is you're going to use it for, right? The stronger it gets, usually the more additives, and the hotter the heat, like all of those things really kind of reinforce not just the implement, right, but reinforce the quality of the metal and the quality of the relationship in a lot of ways. Like, there's a lot of variability in relationships that we can't predict for or even consider, right? So that's why I loved just a quick Google search of like human development and the predictors or the challenges to relationship, and it didn't talk about those 5 or 7 things. It talked about communication. It talked about conflict resolution. It talked about the skills and tools that I talk with you guys all the time about, because those are the things that really help to reinforce a relationship, to build trust, to continue even after going through something difficult. As we talk about grief, for example, or loss or financial hardship, those things definitely contribute to how we connect and how we feel about each other, but they also give us a prediction of like, how is this person going to be able to handle something difficult when it's not ideal and awesome and let's go to the baseball game together and blah blah blah. Like, how are you going to be when I lose a parent? Because I will. How are you going to be when I lose my job? Because you will, right? How are you going to be when I am having a crisis of faith or understanding or belief in myself? Like, how are you going to show up to support me in this difficult time? And I think it's interesting when people, it's curious to me, when people spend a lot of money on a wedding. I'm like, weddings are great and they're super important as rituals of connection and family bonding and blah, blah, blah. But if you don't spend the same amount of time and effort on your marriage, you're just having a party that will, maybe not last in terms of the relationship sustainability. What we do find out in wedding preparation, depending on the kind of wedding you have and all the things, is family members show up in a lot of different ways, both positive and negative, and want to have a lot of control or influence over the situation. The same is true when people have babies, because they come with a lot of unsolicited advice, and then we don't want to step on any toes, and we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. And that's under the best of circumstances, because there's a lot of times when people come in with a lot of opinions and want to give you a lot of unsolicited advice and have perspectives on what they expect of your situation. It's curious to me, right? Because having people, making people, is one of those things that, if two people get together and they choose to make people, that's an opportunity for us to recognize where our boundaries come in and how we can express them or set limits or create expectations in that dynamic. And it really does show who we can trust in a relationship. Same thing as like I said, with grief or any kind of life transition, how people show up for you is an indicator of how strong the relationship is. And having been on the planet as long as I have, I've gone through many friendships and just different relationships with, different expectations and different things. And it's curious, right? As you look back, it's kind of one of those interesting phases of life when you start to think about the longer you're on the planet, the more history you have, the more data points you have to be able to check some facts and identify places where things could have gone differently, where that turned out way better than I expected. And, rather than you guys know that I don't hold on to, shoulda, coulda, woulda, or there was that one time that it was so great and that's the only time I'm going to have. There's lots of humans, and we've talked about that in emotional hoarding, where people have that scarcity mentality that this will be the only time that I have this experience. I hope so, right? In good and bad situations, recognizing it's all temporary, recognizing it could all change at any point. And so I'm going to be grateful for the things that are good, but I'm also going to be grateful for the things that are hard, because that's what forges or, really reinforces, galvanizes, if you will, that skill, tool, or ability. Is that if I have the opportunity to go through really hard things, recognizing that they are temporary, recognizing that I can get through this difficult thing, I can also then get through really good things and appreciate them for what they are, rather than hoarding them and hoping if I only get this one good thing, then this is the only thing that I can hold on to, right? It's curious when I talk to clients about okay, what are you looking forward to? What are you creating moving forward to have something to get through this challenging time, and recognize that, there's going to be other challenging times, but there's also really good things. In this time in Mexico, I've been spending time with my daughter and my son-in-law and our new addition. My daughter gave birth to a son. His name is Jethro Soul. And, watching these two humans get through probably some of the most challenging bits of the labor process and living in a different country. Luna loves it, and Dylan too. They both travel often. But watching them work together to get my grandson here has been probably one of the most beautiful things. And I've seen a lot of beautiful things in my life. But they work really well together, right? And I think as a team, the three of us have been able to practice really communicating expectations, communicating boundaries, setting limits. I recognize that this version of me is so much more willing, open, and curious to what they need, rather than coming in with my own agenda, my own expectations. I know everybody said before now that once you have your first grandchild, it'll change things, and I was pretty resolute that that was not the case for me, because I was not, and I can't say anymore that I have not been. I'm not a baby human, but this baby definitely takes the cake, and they are pretty incredible. But I guess my point is that like coming out here to be witness to this and also to be support of this is has been really helpful for me to recognize. And like, I've always said I often recognize that I do trust my child, who is a grown up and a mother and a woman. I trust her because I've watched her grow, because I've watched her go through trials and hard things and difficult, situations. I've seen the choices that she makes, and I trust her ability as an adult. So in this particular journey as a mother, 100% I trust her ability. And I trust that her research and her willingness to like learn different ways of doing things, like she's already so much better at this than I was in the first 4 days of, motherhood. Then, and like part of that is support. Like I said, she's got an incredible partner, and he is rookie of the year in terms of being a new dad, like really just taking it to the next level. And they are so good at communicating with one another and reading cues and pattern recognition. Both of them are like taking notes and doing research. It's amazing to watch. I have been able to take my dog for a walk and go for go do things and support them in the best way that I know how. By making food and cleaning up, and it's been really, really beautiful to be part of this particular team and certainly this particular process, to recognize that like we're all just like living it, right? We're all just figuring it out together, and both of them are doing so good at having grace for themselves, at being new at something. And I think that's the other thing when we think about building strong tools and implements and trying different things, is like we do have to have grace for those parts that don't necessarily come out perfect but are still useful, even if we have to like smelt them down or turn them back into ore, and then repurpose them or reshape them or find a different route or process to be able to do things. And so when we are giving ourselves grace, when we are recognizing who our team members are, when we are able to see what elements have come into play here, it's so much easier to then be able to move forward and figure out how do we take the next steps, right? What do we do next? And it's curious to me as we continue as human beings to go through hard things. It's often our instinct or inclination to like protect ourselves and not want to go through another hard thing, right? I don't want to say that it makes it so that you can just like stop. There's so many things that we have plans for, and sometimes our plans don't come in the way that we expect them, right? For a lot of overthinkers, we try to think about, and I'm one of them, we try to think about all the different negative scenarios or all the different hardships or hard things that could happen. And so in planning for those things, we are in a way protecting ourselves or trying to create limits to fallibility or failure. That's not how life works all the time, right? So when you have plans for your plans and then there's like something off book that could not happen in any other situation, then you have to be able to be resilient and go, okay, that was a test, that was hard, and then we've got to start over, and that's okay. But that self-talk is a big piece of it, to be able to go, okay, in this relationship, that did not happen the way I expected, and how can I address it moving forward if this person is someone I want to continue building a relationship with. Coffee. You get to choose how you interact then moving forward with your partner of choice, your friend, your family member, even your coworker. It's interesting. I was talking to a client the other day who has been working in a situation for the last year, and they are working on managing their expectations and certainly their emotional vulnerability in this particular field. And so they were like, I'm learning, right? I'm learning that not everybody gets to experience my high sensitivity or my oversharing or whatever. Not everybody gets to, right? Not everybody has that. It's a privilege and an honor to understand everything that's going on in my brain. And also recognizing like why we do that, right? But when you can start to recognize, okay, I'm gonna not change who I am, and I've talked about code switching or emotional regulating, trying to be able to make ourselves more palatable for the audience that we are in, but it's less about their comfort and more about protecting us, right? Recognizing that not everybody gets the full unvarnished version of me, though today, if this video ever makes it to the light of day, I went for a run this morning and then I just came back and started on the podcast because I wanted to get it out. So there's no makeup, there's no hair done, like it's very raw. I don't know that it'll make it to YouTube, but we'll see. But really recognizing that everybody gets to see that, right? Like that's a level of vulnerability. That's a level of really monitoring what you share and what you don't, and thinking about relationships. Like not everybody gets the unvarnished version. Not everybody gets the raw, all your parts at the same time. A lot of times people are going to get just a snippet or, like a sanitized version of you. And that's okay, but it's at our discretion who we get to share our full sensitive selves with, right? And when we think about implementing or creating relationships that are strong, sometimes it's going to be like you're going to have to get the ugly version of me and then decide whether or not this is for you, right? And some people fall away and that's okay. And some people are like, thank you so much for sharing that with me. Now I know that you're someone I can trust, and so I will be more inclined to be vulnerable because you've modeled that for me, right? But I think like especially in romantic relationships and familial partners, really recognizing who can I be the most authentic and the most vulnerable with, and trust that you will not take advantage of that, right? Some people do, and that's really hard. Specific to like making new people and having babies and stuff, lots of people have lots of opinions about how people do things, what they choose. And I'm super grateful that, my clients and the people who knew that I was coming out here to do this, for the most part, were like, why? And then we're like, okay, like they trust me, and by default, they trust Lou. So it worked out. But it is one of those things, right? To start to recognize as we try to make things stronger, and as we choose to go through difficult things, because sometimes we choose them, and as we do go through difficult things, because life is life and it will throw different things at us, really recognizing who is on your team, what elements of skills or abilities do they have when you look at your partner, when you look at your friends, when you look at your family. They all have skills and tools, right? Who has the right blend that makes things stronger, that makes it easier for you to go through hard stuff. And I love working with couples for that reason, because again, in learning their history and recognizing where they came from and how they got here, it's really helpful to recognize a lot of times people are like, we just want things to be calm and good all the time. That's not how life works. But if you recognize that you can get through hard things together, then the more hard things, the more tests you go through, the more galvanizing, the more reinforcing it is to be able to have a healthy and solid relationship. So there's your nugget. I'm going to be posting this probably on a Wednesday. I do apologize for the sound quality. I wanted to keep my bag relatively light, so I did not bring my own microphone and all the things. Doing it old school like we did when we were in Europe. But if you get an opportunity, Merida, Mexico is in the Yucatan. It's beautiful. It's hot. But it's also really amazing. And so this trip has been, like I said, probably one of the most life-changing for me. And certainly for my other partners in crime, certainly my daughter and my son-in-law, and now our new family member, and Ignacio, who is the most vigilant little guy. It's just been interesting. So there's your nugget. If you want to get a hold of me, it's lx2.cod.coach@gmail.com. You can also reach me on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, LX2 Codependency Coaching. I will be back in the States in a week and seeing people in person. And then we'll take it day by day. There's not a whole lot of space in my roster for new clients, but we're moving through and taking terminations. So just keep in touch if that's something you want. Thank you to everyone who's bought the book recently. Thank you to everyone who's listened to the podcast. Often humbled and always grateful. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.